Hey there, fictional friends, and welcome to the first episode of 2024. I'm Megan.
And I'm Sheree.
Are you okay?
This is what we chose to do for our first episode.
This is starting off so well.
Not good.
No. Okay. All right, context. We were trying to decide how to kick off the year, and for some reason, we decided that it would be a really good idea to talk about like post-apocalyptic fiction.
What's wrong with us?
For the month of January. Like I said to Shereen, I've just had "It's the End of the World as We Know It" like on repeat in my head.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine.
Maybe we're just making light of the state of the world right now to a certain extent, just because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry.
Yeah.
And that's what we decided to do, and we sure decided to cry today. So,
God.
Yeah. So to kick things off, we're talking about the fever dream that I'm pretty sure no one remembers from the early 20s.
I certainly don't until,
Yeah, and a fever dream of the early 2010s, which was the adaptation of Stephanie Meyer's first book post-Twilight saga, The Host.
And that might not seem like a big deal, except for one thing. This is the future, and humanity is all but extinct. We have been invaded by another species who erase our minds to take our bodies. But there are a few of us left who still fight back. I'll lead them away.
Melanie, no!
Come with us. Like hell!
Which was released in 2013. And was based on her book, which I think that's it. She wrote like a little, like right after. It must have been like right after Breaking Dawn.
The book is from 2006, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really? Wait, I need to fact check that. 2008.
Oh, right, okay.
It said, well, yeah, so I mean, technically, right? Because, like, what year did all the fucking Twilight ones come out? There's, like...
Those started in
Breaking Dawn came out in 2008 as well, so it was the same year.
Yeah, she was busy, but I don't know if she ever wrote another book after that.
Well, didn't she write the fucking Bree Tanner one that nobody cared about?
Non-Twilight related.
No, I don't think so. Someone definitely correct me, but I've never heard of anything that she's written outside of this one other book that's not set in the Twilight universe in some way, shape, or form. No.
Oh, yeah.
No, she knows where her fucking money comes from, okay?
Well,
she knows what to go back to.
You know what? You gotta respect the woman. She stays in her lane after this monstrosity that we just watched.
Yeah. So, yes, okay, so we're talking about sort of apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic fiction for the month of January, and this is how we decided to kick things off, lol. Anyway, so Host, released in 2013, currently, this is going to be a fun one, has a rating of 5.8 out of 10 on IMDb and 10% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I support this.
The audience score is 50%. So
Still.
I think it lands somewhere in the middle of those two.
I give it 36%.
Like, I watched it. I didn't turn it off, so I'm like, fuck, it wasn't that bad.
Bored.
It is boring.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's like the big takeaway from it. So if you guys have never heard of this, like, it was really, like, at the time that it was published, the book got a ton of hype because obviously it was published right on the back of Twilight.
Yeah.
And those were still blowing up all over the place. I think by the time, like, Breaking Dawn came out, I think the year that the first Twilight movie was released, kind of thing, basically.
Right.
You know, so it would have been, like, a really big deal, which makes sense. That's fine.
Well, I certainly remember running to the bookstore and buying this as soon as it came out.
I've never read this. I did not buy it. I think I read that it was, like, vaguely sci-fi, and at my, like, now I'll read a little bit from time to time, but sci-fi is still not really my thing. And when I, like, kind of read what it was about at the time, I was like, no. I just, like, refused to pick it up. My 18-year-old brain was like, absolutely fucking not. No, thank you.
I didn't hate the book when I read it, but I remain a twihard. And so at the time, of course, I was really one of the big fans of Twilight and would have obviously enjoyed anything that was written.
Followed Stephanie Meyer, you know, to the end of the earth. So that does make sense. Yeah. So, okay. brief kind of rundown of things, because the host is definitely like, yes, there are similar like tropes to a certain extent, but it's a very different type of story than Twilight. It's set in a post-apocalyptic world where these basically alien creatures called souls they're the types of creatures that, you know, kind of, it's very like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but like pathetic and not scary at all.
Like a really weak
pacifist invasion of the body snatchers. So these souls arrive on a planet and basically slowly but surely infiltrate and take over host bodies, basically, so humans, and use their bodies in order to, I guess, restore order and allegedly, like, you know, make the planet a better place, whatever planet they happen to be on at that time. But if you really think about that for a little bit, you're like, I don't really understand.
I was trying to be subtle there.
Good job. Yeah, but what I don't really understand about that is that no matter what, I'm like, you know, you're still taking over people's bodies, in most cases, from what I can tell through the context of this film, without consent.
Yes, and that's what I don't understand, because...
But they're like, oh, we're helping.
And I'm like, no! And like, we're pacifists?
Yeah, because they, like, don't seem to use weapons. At least not at the beginning.
No, I know. Well, it's just... Okay, so the book is...
Thank God Shreen read this book, because I would have been like,
But, like, in the book, it's very different, because, like, in the movie, they make it very, very confusing, because they basically front-load the whole story, and I think that the intent, like, when we watched the movie, in the early scenes, you're getting the feeling that they're trying to ramp up to, like, some big, like, battle, like, big conflict, kind of. The way that it's positioned, like, it's like... They are already in a state of, you know, these souls have basically taken over all the humans. They've booted them all out of their bodies. But in the book, it's a lot more of a slow burn, like, to explain the story of what's happened. Because it is like a 600-page book.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess my thing, too, is that I'm like, you know, because we were talking about it. We were watching it. We were like, where's the big conflict of this? Like, yes, okay, I understand the overarching conflict with the souls taking over, you know, humanity's bodies and things like that. I understand that part. But, like, the conflict that occurs with the characters and stuff like that, and, like, the big thing, it's like a lead up, but then there's no big fight. There's no big anything really at the end of it. And... You know, even when I try to think really quickly, like, you know, if I like try to recode my brain to just the way that Stephenie Meyer thinks about things, I'm like, yes, okay, but even in Twilight, book 1, you have the big fight with James. Book 2, you have the confrontation with the Volturi in Italy. Book 3, you have the whole fight with Victoria and the newborns. Yep. And book 4, you have the other thing with the Volturi. Right. Like the other big conflict with them, and everybody shows up to explain the situation and all that stuff. And yes, okay, I will say that obviously in the movie, Breaking Dawn Part 2, they needed to make it more interesting, so they'd give you that whole flash thing, which you don't really get in the book.
That was a great idea.
Which was a really clever idea by the filmmakers, because I think they knew that if he just like touched Alice and then was like, okay, never mind, everybody would be like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. So we needed a little something. So they needed to do something to ramp up the action, and they did. And so I think that worked well, but it's weird because then this came right off the back of that, and I'm like, whoa.
But this is it. I'm like, in this one, you know, we're kind of seeing a little bit of the story. So basically, it's the story of Melanie, who is the human, and her body is being I don't know,
infiltrated
by Wanderer. So the soul that's inside of her. And
yeah, it calls itself Wanderer, because I guess they have different jobs.
Yes.
And so, like, you know, the soul that takes over her body is a wanderer, so she or it, whatever, travels to like different planets and you know, takes over different hosts, and then just kind of follows orders from there. And then you have other souls called seekers, who I guess are the ones whose job it is specifically to look for humans in order to infiltrate further into
and bring more souls in.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like parasites, basically. That's why it's called the host, because the human is hosting
this like
soul.
almost like a parasitic body to an extent. Yeah.
Right. But the understanding is that once these souls go inside the bodies, the human is not dead. Like they're still in there. And so and in the book, they make this clear that some people just having the souls go inside of them is enough to basically kill them.
Right.
Like,
and for some people, it's not, obviously.
And for some people, it's not. And that's the case. And if I recall correctly in the book, Melanie speaking to Wanderer in her head is like unheard of. Like, she is like beyond like strong because she's able to still speak to her, whereas like this doesn't happen to anyone else.
Okay, I get it.
But in the movie, they make it seem like it's more common.
They have a little. Well, they only have. It's only slightly sort of like insinuated because the seeker who does this to Melanie in the first place, when they see, because she's like tried to run away from them, she jumps out a window and basically should be dead, but she's not. They have this little conversation. She's like, "Oh, this one wants to live," and so of course, I guess you're meant to understand that she's very strong-willed.
Yes,
right. So Melanie's played by Saoirse Ronan.
Oh, poor Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah, well, she was trying. I mean, because the thing is that like she's a good actress, but you can't do anything to a certain extent with like a script and bad editing and.
Oh, but I think we should take this moment to tell everyone who directed and wrote this movie.
Oh my god, you're so funny.
Is the person who directed and wrote other giant sci-fi, blockbusters such as Gattaca and The Truman Show.
Truman Show, which is wild.
Like, what?
What a crazy thought.
Yeah.
Shireen just said that to her husband while we were watching the movie, and he was like, what?
Yeah, he's pretty mad now.
Yeah, he was pretty upset about that. So, yes, Melanie is captured, infused, basically, with the soul that calls itself Wanderer, and then basically what they're doing, because they can kind of tell that, like, there's still, like, some consciousness in there, the Seeker is trying to get Wanderer to access all of Melanie's memories and lead her to all of the other humans that are still alive so that they can find them.
They want more hosts. Yeah.
Exactly. They need more hosts for the souls, and that's what they want them for. It's like a body farm.
However, it's extremely confusing in the movie, like, because in the book, again, they take the time to explain, like, that they're supposed to be very peaceful creatures. Yeah. Like, they're just coming here and they're trying to make the world a better place. But then you've got this contrast with this one seeker in the movie who is like trying to destroy all the humans, and she's made it clear that that's her main goal.
Yeah, you can tell she's like a lot more intense than the others, and even the other seekers are like, bro, chill out.
Yeah, and so like you get this weird situation happening throughout the movie where you can see the humans approaching and going into like the stores and like going around where all the seekers are, and they can go and get what they need because they're peaceful creatures, so they're just letting them go with
and
it.
Like, it's funny too because that's it. They don't get into all of the specifics of the world because it's a movie and it's like an hour and a half long. But you can see like there are certain scenes in the movie where as the host, like as Wanderer, basically she's able to just walk into a grocery store, pick up food and leave with it. Like they don't pay because I guess it's like, oh, well, we make it better so that there's enough for everybody and you don't have to worry about being first come, first serve kind of thing. You don't have to worry about that. So she can smile, walk out of the store and everything's fine. And again, that's it. No one pushes and shoves. It's not like a chaotic situation because they're pacifists, quote unquote.
However, in the book, they're really going into detail about how difficult it is to be a human in this like situation, because they really do have to like go and scavenge for food and everything, and like it's a whole survival journey, whereas in the movie they're not really making that very clear because they're showing that the humans are able to just rock into the grocery stores as well
and not have to do very much. So Wanderer in Melanie's body basically decides to take off because she doesn't want to give away too much more information to the Seeker about where Melanie's little brother Jamie is and where her boyfriend Jared is and her uncle,
her coven.
It kind of feels like it. Yeah. Her uncle Jebediah. Jesus Christ. Who, by the way, why are there so many J's?
Jared, Jamie, and
Jedediah. Jeez, what an alliteration. Good job, Stephanie Meyer. Anyway, so she breaks away and takes off because she feels like drawn, I think, to the idea of the humans and like what's going on. And her and Melanie are slowly but surely kind of forming a connection because they can really communicate with one another.
Which doesn't really happen in the book until like way later on. They kind of hate each other forever.
For a while, yeah. So she finally manages to make it out there, and obviously the colony, whatever you want to call them, find her. Most of them want to kill her, but then like Jebediah and like, you know, and stuff are like, and like Jamie obviously are like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, she still looks like Melanie.
Yeah, and so initially obviously she's like, you know, kept in a cell and things like that, and they think that they're, you know, she's going to be killed and stuff like that, but he doesn't want that because he wants to see whether or not it's possible. Like, he's like, why would she, like, they've never done that. Normally when they're taken over, they just start working with the other souls, and that's what it is. But, you know, she came to us. Like, there has to be a reason for that. Maybe Melanie's not gone necessarily. Maybe she's still in there. So basically he guesses right pretty much off the bat. He's like the first one who's like, maybe this means something. Where everybody else is like, kill her. And you're like, well, okay, calm down.
It's a lot more I think it's like a lot more complicated in the book.
I'm
but
sure
again,
it is.
600 plus
pages. Yeah, that's it exactly. Versus
Yeah.
one film, you know, it's not going to be quite the same thing. So
I'm surprised they didn't split this into 2 movies, since that they'd already had this appetite for splitting movies into 2.
Yeah, that's true. We had already started to hit our stride with that. Yeah, I'm surprised. I don't know. Maybe just they didn't count on it being as successful or anything. So they were like, nah.
They were right.
Well, I mean, it had a budget of $40 million and it made 63.3. So, I mean, yes, it made more, but I believe, I forget what the number is specifically. I believe in order to be considered a full success, like because of like the production companies and stuff and all the costs for everything, I think it needs to make double 1.5 times its budget or something, or 2.5 times its budget. I forget. There is a specific amount though that it's meant to make in order to be considered a box office success. So technically this didn't do it.
This was a bit of a flop.
Yeah. Obviously, also, it received pretty unfavorable reviews. So I'm sure that didn't help anything either. Anyway.
But again, it was very rushed in one movie.
Exactly. And you can tell in the pacing and the cuts of the film that you're like, sometimes we hop from one scene to the next and you're like, whoa, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
So she's there for a little while. Slowly starts to become integrated, like the whole thing that you'd think would happen with Jamie and with one of the other younger guys there whose name is Ian. Jared is there as well, but he's like...
She's not Melanie.
He's like, well, she's not Melanie. And then he starts to kind of be like, fucking, is she Melanie? Like, is Melanie in there? And it's really bothering him, obviously.
Understandably.
Yeah. At this same time, like, you know, they're showing her how they live, how they kind of hide in the mountains. The Seekers are out looking for her and blah. So they're like regularly hiding. She starts helping them with stuff and people start getting more comfortable with her. This kind of goes back and like this kind of is going well for a period of time until like some of the guys are out on a supply run and a couple of them get cut off and the Seekers try to take them, and of course their thing is always like no one gets taken. That's like their thing. So these guys like decide to kill themselves rather than be taken by the souls and become hosts. That's not what they want. So, of course, then this causes sort of more dissension. People are mistrustful immediately again, even though I'm like, she was just sitting here eating food, guys. Like, she had nothing to do with anything that just happened on the outside.
Well, it's because they're like, if they weren't looking for you, then, you know, we wouldn't be so scrutinized here.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, finally, because that's it. So, Wanda, or they call her Wanda at this point, Wanda has admitted to Jamie, to the little brother, that, Melanie's consciousness is still, like, around in there. He's the first person that she admits it to. Jeb kind of figured it out on his own. So you're like, okay, fine. So they're sort of aware of it. And then eventually Ian and Jared, new love interest, old love interest, both become aware of this as well, even though, like, Jared and this other guy, Kyle, who's the other blonde guy? I think
the one who tries to kill her?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that's it. They try to kill her, basically, or Kyle tries to kill her.
Yeah.
Basically, and then changes his tune immediately after. Go figure. Anyway.
Well, because they were like, if you did actually try to kill her, then you're dead too.
Yeah. So, of course, Jared doesn't believe this at first, but then he just decides he goes and like kisses her. And of course, Melanie's like, hey, stop kissing the girl who's taken over my body. So she like slaps him in the face. And he's like, oh my God, I believe it now. It's really silly. It's so silly and melodramatic. I'm like, really? That was your strategy? Okay.
Yeah.
The this. It's just, there were so many kissing scenes in this movie because Saoirse Ronan had to do double time and kiss 2 different dudes.
I know. She must have really enjoyed that.
Probably.
No, maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Thank you, but hey, you know, it's also like,
it's everybody's filming you.
yeah, like it's kind of icky too.
I was only
it's hard to get into the headspace.
It was only like 10 years ago, but intimacy coordinators weren't as much of a thing at the time. So like, who fucking knows what was going on?
Yeah, and it was one of those like they're like these young adult movie like kisses where it's just like it's the passion.
Yeah, for sure. So Wanda has fully developed feelings for Ian, and of course the complication is that Melanie is still in there, and Melanie is still in love with Jared, obviously. So it's weird and complicated, and there's much like kissing and Melanie being like, "Ew, God, don't do that. You're like using my body to do this."
The background voice in this is pretty funny.
It is kind of funny sometimes. Like not all the time. Sometimes she just says like really asinine things, but it is kind of funny that way. So Wanda learns at one point after having kind of like stumbled onto some of the stuff that's going on that the colony are basically slowly but surely trying to figure out how to get the souls out of people's bodies, but in doing so they don't know how to do it properly. So the souls keep dying like immediately after they're like extracted, like ripped out of people's bodies. So because of that, she gets really upset and she kind of like isn't sure if she wants to still be there and stuff, but obviously I think Melanie talks her into staying, of course, but she also has to just show people slowly but surely, like, no, you don't just rip them out, you have to kind of coax them out. They have this weird little like
these little like
pod
like, everything's chrome.
Yes. Oh my God. The cars are chrome. The helicopters are chrome. The motorcycles are chrome.
Valhalla, shiny and chrome.
Oh my God, it's crazy. Everything is like reflective.
I know.
And I'm sure there's supposed to be something about like your 2 selves or some fucking bullshit. It's it's probably supposed to mean something. Thank you. I came up with that just now.
You went far there, but
I feel like I'm right.
I think you are, yeah.
Because there are like a good few scenes where Melanie like will walk up to a window and you see her reflection and you also see her, and I'm like, okay,
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Anyway, so she shows them that. Also, Jamie was injured, her little brother, and he has like a really bad infection. And he's going to die if he doesn't get like medication, but they don't really have access to that. So she's able to learn like, you know, like what to do for him. And she basically, that's it. She sneaks into like a medical facility, a hospital, probably just marked medical on the outside. Oh my God, guys, there's a grocery store. There's a grocery store scene where they're going and they're just like stealing stuff to stock up on things from the grocery store or whatever store it is. And on the outside, it just says store. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a brand.
And everything's like the no-name brand. So you're like, oh, look.
It's a Maxi.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Sweet.
It's so funny. So she manages to do that. They save Jamie. Again, that conflict means nothing. It goes nowhere.
It's the least conflict movie ever.
Anyway, the Seeker's obviously still been looking for her. She's basically like branched off to do it by herself at this point because she's totally crazy.
Yeah.
And she's captured by like Jebediah and a couple of the others and stuff, and then Wanda's like, okay, I'm going to show you how, like, this is how you take the soul out properly. So they coax it out, put it into its little pod, and she sends it back up to space somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know. Maybe she'll be back. Maybe she won't. I'm like, maybe you should kill the villain. Maybe that would be a good idea.
No, they're like, villain, go to space.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I mean, like, yes, they freed the woman whose body she had taken over, and I'm like, that's lovely. Good for you. Yeah. And she says she was like, because she could hear me all the time too. And so it turns out that she was a very similar case to Melanie
very
and Wanda.
Yeah.
Very strong. So because of that, she was basically hell-bent on finding a way to get rid of the hosts completely so that you would not have to hear them at all. And that's why she was so obsessed with doing this. So because they're deciding to do this, and she's like, Wanda decides to sacrifice herself and be like, Melanie deserves to have her life back and be with her brother and be with her boyfriend and everything, blah blah blah. So she tells the doctor at first, I need you to extract me, like put me in the pod or whatever, but like, I don't want to ever take over anyone's body again. I don't want to do that to someone else, against their will. So just let me die. Basically, like, I have to, and promise, don't say anything, just let me die. And obviously Ian's all upset about her leaving, even though she lies and says that she's going to another planet. But they do go through with the procedure, and then she wakes up, however long later, I think like a month or something they're saying.
I missed that.
I think it was a month that they were indicating, and she's in another body, and Melanie's there, and she's totally fine, and she's like, whoa, hey, hang on, like I said, I didn't want to be put in anyone else's body, and it's basically just like the little story workaround where they had been extracting the souls from bodies, but this particular one of this girl, they tried, and she never woke up after they took the soul out of her, so the host body was obviously basically brain dead and non-functional, and they were like, it was the only way we could save the body, blah, blah, blah.
Well, see, that was the difference with the book, was my understanding that all the bodies were like that. If you tried to remove the host, there wasn't anything left in there.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Maybe...
But I might be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't make sound... In the movie, they made it sound like this is the only one that happened with.
Yeah.
And I was like,
in the movie, they're making it seem like, we can just kind of take those out, and we're good.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the book, but I feel like that was part of it.
Interesting. So of course, obviously, that's all hunky-dory, and she's able to be with Ian, and Melanie can be with Jared. There's too many characters. And they can all live happily ever after. And like a number of months later, they're out in like a city, basically the four of them, on, I guess, a supply run or something, I don't know, and they get pulled over. And they're like, oh, fuck, like it's, souls
More
and stuff.
seekers.
And they think that they're seekers and they're going to be taken, yada, yada, yada. But then it turns out that this is another mixed group of humans and souls who have decided that, like, they don't want to do this and they just want to stay on Earth and live together and everything like that. So, of course, it's all hunky-dory and we just wrap up and everybody's apparently totally fine. And I guess we're all going to work together towards something better.
I know, they're like, there's 3 other groups of humans. Ha ha ha.
I'm like, how big are they?
And I'm just like,
there's millions of people on the planet.
I can't remember the end of the book. It might have been like this because it's Stephanie Meyer and she likes having a very happily ever after.
That's true.
End. But yeah, I didn't love the ending of this. I was just like, oh, okay, like, can we see more of that? Like, that's my point. Like,
yeah.
I feel like they could have split this in 2 almost and, like, elaborated a bit more on a lot of things.
Just on the build-up of things, I think would have been interesting to do.
And a conflict.
Yeah, an actual conflict, like an actual fight. At the end, there was nothing.
More of a conflict than a scuffle.
Yeah, because when, like, the Seeker shows up and is like, I'm gonna kill you, basically, she gets shot immediately.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, like she's there on her own with no backup or anything. Like,
yeah, because of course she's like gone crazy or whatever. But it's just, that's it. It was just like, it's just very toothless. It is. It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like for Hallmark, basically.
If Hallmark did Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that's what this would be. What? You're not wrong.
It's true. There's no like, I don't know, it just feels like there's no like pain, like there's no like real
substance to it. Like the
No.
movie was playing and
like the
like
raw visceral sort of reaction that you would have to something like this, like people's bodies being taken over by like a parasite. You'd be like, holy fucking shit, but they just don't.
No, they're just like, oh, I'm sure Melanie's in there somewhere, but let's not worry about that too much.
No,
like,
that's it.
Like,
and let's like, oh, we'll figure it out. That's inconvenient. Prod. Like, okay.
Yeah. And so like it's one of those movies that you could be like scrolling your phone and have this on in the background and then look up every like 10 minutes.
And you'd still be able to follow the story.
Like, you wouldn't have missed much.
I think you were doing that for part of the movie.
I was doing it.
Because you were like, I'm bored. This is boring.
So and that's when I was like, this is the least conflict.
Yeah, there are so many filler scenes.
Yeah.
And because it's actually, like, because there's so much that could be going on in terms of the story because of the conflict that is technically occurring, they spend so much time on like the fluffy romance parts of things, and it's like one of those stories where I'm like, no. Like, again, this is maybe why they would have had to split it into like a couple of movies so that they could have covered more of like the actual conflict itself, and then not had as many like romance scenes like one after another because you were just like, okay, because they have to shove so much of it in because of course she's in love with 2 fucking different guys.
Yeah, like there was no runway to this whole Ian Indian thing.
No, it was like he like literally the first scene he's there and he's like, let's kill it kind of thing. And then she does one little thing to be nice to someone and he's suddenly like, oh, she's totally great. And
Yeah,
like,
and
what?
then he's like pursuing her and chasing after her, and she's like, this body loves Jared and I love Jared, but I have my own feelings. This is actually quote for quote.
Which what? Yeah, I can someone explain that quote to me? Yeah, okay. Well, this body loves Melanie loves Jared, and this body loves Jared, so I love Jared, but she doesn't.
But then she's like, but I have
and
my
she's
own
like,
feelings.
but I have my own feelings, and I'm like, what?
Je ne comprends pas. I do not understand. Like,
Explain it to me.
Yeah.
That was a really weird line. Andrew Niccol, what are you doing?
I can't believe you directed the Truman Show.
That's crazy.
And then this.
And Gattaca. That's wild.
And Gattaca.
Yeah,
Like, that was a great
These
sci-fi
are
movie.
Really big films. Anyway, if anybody thought that this was the Korean Host, I'm really sorry, guys. That's a really different movie.
Tune in next week.
Oh, no. Shireen won't want to watch that movie. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that, but I'm sure that you turned this episode off already. If you stayed, you're
Thank
a trooper.
you.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, God, I you know what? I'd like to hear from other people if anybody else has read the book and remembers this book, remembers this movie. Did anybody like this movie? I don't know. Someone
Did you all forget this existed?
Yeah, I did until I started looking for ideas as to like what we could talk about, and then I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, I forgot about that." You can let us know about that over on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at FullyBookedCA, and you can also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/book was way better. But until next time, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.